Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast with me, Ben Talon, illustrator and creativity coach, founder of the Creative Condition, artist and writer. I bring 20 years of creative industry experience and a lifelong love of creativity, a fundamental pillar of human happiness, to you through ongoing personal exploration and the shared experiences of others. You'll get a nourishing mix of creative industry professionals and people far and wide using creativity in ways that can take our learning to the next level so we can maximise our unique blend. The show has been supported from day one by Illustration X, a tremendous illustration agency representing a shining global roster of illustrators and animators over at illustrationx.com. The music for the show is by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on all good streaming services. And for everything else, for my coaching, resources and inspiration, head to thecreativecondition.com. How are you doing, guys? Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast. My name is Ben Talon. I'm your host. Do you realise it's been a decade of this now? Who's been listening since the rest of my mix? Let me know if you're still on board. Tumbleweed. No, seriously though, is anyone still around? Because 10 years is a long time for a podcast. And there'll be people who are regular listeners to this show who were still in school, I reckon, when I started this thing. That's a weird thought, isn't it? Because I was still an illustrator, and I am an illustrator now, but I do a lot more than what I did back then, because I'm also a coach, and I'm also obviously a podcaster, because you're listening to this, a writer. That's a weird thought, isn't it? It's that thing where people you're friends with were once your kids' mates and stuff like that. It's just weird time slip stuff. Anyway, sorry for the early tangent there. I hope you're good. I hope you're feeling creative. Welcome if you're new to the show. Thank you for checking in. I hope you enjoy. If you do, get subscribing. Tell a friend. I'm still growing it. And the central cause, as ever, to this show is to support and elevate creativity in society. And I'm not just talking about creativity in terms of artistic talents in the creative industry. I'm talking about creativity as a mechanism to solve big world problems, to live more fulfilling lives on an individual basis, and to form a glue in communities that have been severely broken down in recent times because of this age of distraction, disaffection, and deviance at political level, stopping us from progressing as a species. We can challenge that through creativity. I seriously believe it. But I think it does start with people who are practicing creativity and leading their lives with it more than others. That's what I'm doing. So I interview people. I talk about things like today's episode. I'm going to be talking about designing a career. What does that mean? We'll get into that in a minute. I wrote a piece on it. That's what I'm going to be sharing with you today from the Creative Condition Diary. But for all of that, for all of my other resources, you can book on for your pit stop now at thecreativecondition.com//coach. When I say creativity coach, I'm going to be talking about some of that in today's piece. But I help people to get back on track, to recognise their biggest strengths, to address and challenge their frustrations and limitations, to move forward with forward motion and flow. Not easy when we work in this career, because we are challenged sometimes and restricted. But what I want is you to feel empowered and to believe in your ability and to really get back to a place where you are designing your career. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. But get in touch. There's always free and affordable resources at the Creative Condition, like the reading list and the 300 plus episodes of this podcast. But there's also, if you value your career and you're prepared to invest a little bit of money, then I can work with you as a coach. I can do the pit stop. That's a one-off intensive session. It takes a full day, costs £600. I'm happy to split that 2, 3, 4 ways, whatever works for you over a number of months, if that's a sum of money. But the point is, it's one of the best investments you'll make. What else is 600 quid? Well, it's about 8 nights out in London. So are you prepared to invest 8 nights worth of beers into your career to get you back on track? I would hope so, if you're listening to this show. So get in touch, fill out the form at thecreativecondition.com/coach, and we'll go from there. We'll have a Zoom call no obligation. Talk about the process, see if it's right for you, talk about how we can split that financially, and let's work together, because I love this. Alternatively, I work long-term with people like Ryan Lewis, motion designer and designer over in California. Been working with Ryan for over 6 months now, and it's been awesome seeing him develop and helping him structure that progression. So get in touch, give me a shout. I also do workshops and one-to-one sessions for agencies too. So all of that is available. Massive thank you to the founding sponsor of the show, illustrationx.com. Awesome agency. Loads of great illustrators and animators spread across the globe. Go and check them out now. Right, let's get into it. So the Creative Condition Diary. So this came from a post by Simon Dixon, co-founder of DixonBaxi. Simon is a man of brilliant words. If you follow him on LinkedIn, you'll know that. And what he shared was the following piece of advice, which triggered the theme for today's episode. Design the career you want to live. If you don't define it, someone else will, and you'll be the one stuck living it. Now, this triggered the following. So it left me flailing on the deck, stunned out of my shoes by the sheer power of it. I thought it was really quite profound, what he said. And it got me thinking about the way that I coach my clients. I do it through a cocktail of therapy, discussion, connection, ideas, and guidance. Connection not in the sense that I'll end up best mates with everyone I work with, but in a way that, just like my podcasts, I bare my soul to access their inner child, their authentic self, not just their job title. Do you know what I mean? Because we all kind of go, well, I'm a designer, so that's what I am. In my opinion, every designer, illustrator, photographer, filmmaker, actor, theatre is an artist. That's what they are. They live their lives as an artist. It's just that the work they get paid for will often lead them astray from that cause. Creativity is directly attached to our personality and story. You can't get away from that. It's an extension of self. So in my opinion, and what I've found as a coach, you get the best from someone by understanding them enough to remind them of their worth, freeing them from learned doubt and inhibition, destructive inner dialogue, and dreary prescriptive anti-creativity. We get vulnerable in these coaching sessions. We vent frustrations and we throw dreams, whims, ideas and silly thoughts around and look at them from many angles. We see what sticks, we see what isn't working, and we strip it out. All of this is done within a framework that I've been calling the anatomy of creativity. If you head to the shop on thecreativecondition.com, you'll see the map. You can pick up your digital version for the price of a pint of beer. You can order your print copy that you can stick on your wall and you can refer back to. Like I said, there are affordable resources. Otherwise, if I don't have this anatomy of creativity without some direction and guardrails in my coaching sessions, then I'd never shut up and we'd both just die and turn to dust while coughing and spluttering about all the possibilities creativity presents. But what Simon said, let's go back to that. What Simon said is everything. I mean it, everything. In the end, ultimately, it's all on us in career and life. We have to design both. That's not to say we can control everything, because we can't. 3 of the life pillars I get my clients to acknowledge are highlighted in Stutz, a tremendous film about psychotherapist Phil Stutz, which you should go and watch. It's on Netflix. And they are pain, uncertainty, constant work. Now that might sound like a heavy load, but that's life, isn't it? You give me an instance where you can escape pain, uncertainty, and constant work in this life. Not going to happen. They never go away. It's the way of the universe. Everything falling apart, Fight Club style. But you have to acknowledge them. You have to acknowledge them. And acknowledging them and welcoming them into our planning phase, our production processes, and our final execution of our art means we are adaptable, present, and we're somewhat resilient to what may or may not lie ahead. After reading Simon's post, it occurred to me that designing a career and a life is what we do in my coaching and what I've been doing since I set foot in the creative industry. That was a crazy revelation because I've been doing this for nearly 20 years now, and the idea that I can just read 2 lines of text and it's surmises what I've been doing and what I do with my clients. I mean, that speaks to Simon's experience and diligence, but it's so true, isn't it? And it's funny that you can see it distilled down to 2 lines of text, but that's what great writing does. In my coaching, I use the Japanese philosophical mindset of Seikatsu Sha, which loosely translates to those who live by doing, becoming the author of one's own life. Another concept that blew me away when I came across it. I've done this with varying degrees of awareness, so you're not always conscious of what you're doing with creativity, and that's why it freaks a lot of people out, because you have to feel it, test it, move towards instincts, then make decisions. That's the designing. So my first portfolio is an example. It was a snarling, antagonistic, partisan blast of activism in pen and ink. I made it this way to ensure I scared off work that didn't align with my creative desires, and to engage the clients who could give me the stuff that I'd give a shit about working on. Since school, and it took me a long time, obviously, I'm 42 now, I was 16 then, I've recognised that if I am not passionate about something, I can't learn or apply myself to it. It remains the case to this day. I've found myself, when a lecture has lost me, when it's just about a portfolio and there's no human story, I found myself kicking the back of the seat in front, one step away from flicking ink on the back of somebody's fucking collar, you know what I mean? So I set out with intent, designing the career that I fancied. I was aware of this. I was very militant about this, actually. I held myself to account because I had the chance of living a dream career. I wasn't going to dilute it by running towards all the work that paid well but didn't feel good. Don't get me wrong, I did that work. I still do that work. We have to pay the bills. But my portfolio is exclusively a statement of intent because I want a career that I enjoy. An example of something that was less straight line: Champagne and Wax Crayons, my debut book. Its origin was in freelance frustration, and using the negative emotion spectrum is not a straightforward exercise. It's bloody confusing, full of doubt and uncertainty. A blog rant became a rough manuscript because my cathartic release tool, writing, gathered some attention. It was real, raw, and resonated with others leading with creativity. I had chats with people like Kingsley Nibechi who got in touch to check that I was alright. That's how venomous some of the early posts were. But then people like Lisa Maltby got in touch. I think that was through it. Kate Madigan, illustrator, she was a fan of it. She loved the honesty, and actually was the first person to tell me that there was some good writing there. Like, she was from an editorial background and she thought I was a good writer. I cannot tell you how pivotal that was for my self-belief in me as a writer. But before that, I got addicted to the process because I enjoyed the feel of it, the joy of having a voice and connection through it. Suddenly, I was a writer and a published author. Maybe I was a lucky fucker, what do you reckon? Well, there was some luck, of course. There's always a degree of luck, and you have to embrace that as something else I work on with my coaching clients. How do you not get bitter about when luck doesn't go your way, but acknowledge the fact that you do have a little control over luck coming to you? Well, anyway, in this case, the luck was being connected to David Woods Hale, my editor, and at the time, an illustration client. But the authoring, the designing of my life and career, was my committing to the work, believing in the story. I was the story that I was telling enough to talk about it. Not just lip service, but glowing as I voiced the magic it made me feel. I was living as a writer by that point because I'd really bought into this idea that I could be one. Partly thanks to David's trust and the book deal, but also thanks to Kate Madigan's faith. More importantly though, my connection with the community with who it resonated, because even if it was editorially imperfect, it had soul and it was hitting people in the heart and the balls, and I loved that. I was carrying myself with enough self-belief to transmit enough positive energy to hook David's interest and excitement. David took that resonance and fought my corner, convincing his superior at the publishing house to offer me a book deal. That's how it works in this world. Resonance. Passion. I had no plans to be a writer. The designing bit was allowing my curiosity to lead because I valued that and trusted it to open the right doors, even if I didn't know where they were or what opportunity might be behind them. Serendipity, in other words. That's instinct, play, faith, in what feels right, and belief in my ability to see the opportunity in my skill set to deliver on it. Like, I knew I could create, I knew I was a good artist, I knew I was a good illustrator. I was gathering some momentum in my confidence about being a writer. But most importantly, I was operating as my inner artist. Now, what discipline I used within that, it didn't matter. That's about the circle of confidence and the circle of competence. Trusting where you can roam and not fuck up, and actually be pretty good and still tell your story in a way that has your voice. Fast turnaround responding to the elements that dropped into the folder that I shared with the universe, if you will. Many of my clients lack this self-belief or trust in process and play because we live in a world with data pouring out of its arse. And it terrifies people into creative stasis at every level. We see it now in so many agencies just parping out the expected because they disconnect from their instinct, devalue and often demolish their story as they live and die by CVs and track records and job titles. Serving the expected, it's painfully dull, and it's not people's fault that they're doing that, but they are unwittingly a part of a culture that is fostering just safety, absolutely banal safety, handing the keys to automation almost. I really believe that. They await instruction and don't even put their ideas forward because they already know someone in some department in their agency is likely to say no because they know that someone else will never entertain such unpredictability. And that's sad to me in an industry that calls itself creative. And it's exactly why burnout, disillusionment, distraction, and ultimately creative self-destruction are rife, even among those who we assume live the dream. And I'll tell you now, it's my biggest pleasure at the moment to see my clients' faces as I remind them that they can design a better way forward by realigning themselves with their inner child, making them answer to their deathbed selves, and reinstalling the reasons they wanted to create in the first place. That's my job as a coach. I like to identify big dreams and tiny inclinations, blow up the little things sketched in notebooks onto billboard-sized canvases. That's what you've got to do. You've got to play with scale. You've got to push the boundaries. You've got to get out of the comfort zone. Not easy when I just say it like that. Like, what does that mean? But that's what we do in our coaching sessions. We actually give it definition and steps, tangible, actionable, long-term steps. I love to encourage them to reframe the little jokes shared between friends or to draw with the dirt that's been festering in the backs of their minds. To begin actively doing, to get sharing, is to come into possession of a skeleton key that will unlock the door to the exhilarating unknown. It's getting a bit wordy, isn't it, and poetic, but that's how I feel about creativity, and that's me. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you'll be aware of that I can get a little wordy and profound about all this, but I do think that creativity is that important to humanity. Anyway, I'm going off on one. But once I got the sense that my coaching was a beautiful fit for me being an empathetic, sensitive, perceptive soul who knows a lot about human needs and creativity, I started to build a home so that they might come. First, hundreds of podcasts to build trust and show that my motivations were pure, despite my need to ask for money in exchange for my work in a capitalist society. I cannot begin to tell you how, on a daily basis, it's challenging sometimes to ask for money, because this work is very personal. And to go to people who I think I can help, many of whom are colleagues, peers and friends, and say it costs 600 quid, for example, to do a pit stop, it hurts. I don't like doing that. I wish I could do it for free. But, that's not the reality, is it? And I'm good at what I do, and it's massively helpful. Anyway, after all the podcasts, public speaking at schools and colleges and universities and businesses and events started to happen. Then another book, The Creative Condition. A degree of risk and uncertainty with all of this meant that I had to stay attuned to instincts. But this was me. I really started to feel when I began coaching and doing all this podcasting work through The Creative Condition and building the home that is now the website, that I was working as my purest self. It's not that I wasn't with the illustration, it's just that the human side of this was just something even deeper. I guess as far as the illustration, like the best jobs I've ever done are the ones where there was a human connection and I was a part of the conversation and the ideas and the creative and the humanity. It's just that doesn't always happen. Anyway, creativity was by now my life's passion, and while I adore and continue to make my illustration and art with deep love for the craft, I wanted to put just as much stock into my desire to elevate society's perception and use of creativity as I did in my illustration. I wasn't making any money through this stuff though, that was the trouble early on. And I got guilty about the sheer time I was giving to the podcast and the work I was doing around it. But by designing a scenario where that was possible and would further the cause of creativity, I steered things towards a future where I could pay my mortgage and commit to my crusade without having to wait for the fucking economy to collapse. Because that's how I felt for a while. I felt like I couldn't truly do this work while we were under capitalism. It felt terrifying, but also unbelievably exciting and enticing, actually, the idea of it's paying and helping people. Anyway, my coaching clients are often either not making much money, if any at all, from the thing they'd like to become their main work. That's a challenge, isn't it? A great challenge for a coach. Or they're just not bringing their best version to their roles in companies because they don't believe something they love so much will be validated in a commercial environment. But I see so much proof that it doesn't have to be that way. And both situations will only change if you design a scenario where they can, where it's possible. In my case, I invested my own money into a brand, a website, and an infrastructure to visually convey my competency and my understanding of what I wanted to bring to people's lives. I had to prove, in other words, that I understood creativity, and I had to put money into making it look sexy enough through good copy and visual communication to make it a spider web woven from the warm rush that this work gave me. Because essentially I wanted to give everyone else that warm rush. Anyway, challenges were everywhere. Imposter syndrome, moments of silly comparison, so much doubt in pricing the work because where do you fucking start? I've never been good at that. Full-blown financial panic and lows in which I almost surrendered and ran off happened all the time. They still happen. And sometimes I get so low that I'm left perplexed by what I was even thinking in the first place when I already have a career doing something I love as an illustrator. But it has a way of coming back around because it's a deep-rooted internal passion. But through the podcast, I got some bookings. I did 6 free pilot pit stops last summer, one-to-one standalone sessions to prove to myself, first and foremost, that this framework, this anatomy of creativity and this coaching session would work, that it would help people, that I could charge money and not feel like a shitbag. Each one turned out to be thrilling and transformative for the client and myself. Then I started getting workshop bookings for agencies and organisations. I did one for PJ Richardson at Laundry. I did one for D&AD in London. Positive feedback, confidence rising, becoming what I already was inside and had been for a good while doing the podcasts and having these conversations in my day-to-day life. Trust the process, keep doing, feeling. It's the same for anyone. Tiny deadlines, holding yourself to account, and compound results will start to come instead of freaking yourself out with the scary idea of the end result. That's what I tell every client. And every time when they implement it, things start to change because they're designing their career again. No massive end goal to overwhelm yourself and miss the signposts along the way, because if you've got your eyes closed and you're looking way ahead at the horizon line, you'll miss what's right there in front of you. That's the clues. They're the breadcrumbs, if you remember Dan Kieran saying that back on, I think, episode 177, somewhere around there anyway. Just one foot in front of the other, going with the flow. That's all it needs to be. One day at a time, 1 hour at a time. Feel it, move with it, trust it, and do it. Creativity coach, writer, illustrator, and artist. All the titles make me smile because I love them. I love those jobs. I'm whatever I want to be according to what's in front of me. That's what it is now. But unknowing and knowing in equal measure, I crafted it to be this way. I've always been moving according to the compass of my soul. And whatever you want to do with your creativity, it's all possible. I don't just believe that, I know it. But just like Simon says, only if you take it by the horns and make it move, feel its movements, trust them, especially when they seem wild and frenzied, and lean in. Nobody else can do that for you. but I certainly get a lot out of helping you know where to start and how to keep going. So, if you like the sound of all that, give me a shout. Love to work with more people. We can work something out financially that covers you. It's not a problem. We'll move that barrier. But if you can't tell from the last half an hour or so of rambling that I'm truly passionate about this and I love it, then maybe it's not a good fit. But I am, and I love it. So get in touch, thecreativecondition.com/coach for all that stuff, thecreativecondition.com for the broader ecosystem, the home that I've built that I mentioned just now. I really love it. So let me know. Been so good working with everyone that I've worked with so far this year, and I'd love to do more. So give me a shout, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to the founding sponsor of the show, illustrationx.com, who have been so supportive of the way that this has all evolved over the last 10 years and continue to do so. They're also very supportive of our industry, so check them out right now. Have a great week, guys. Back soon with more guest episodes. Exciting times for the show and for the Creative Condition, and I hope for you to make it happen. Get in touch. Nice one, guys. See you later.